Awesome. Welcome to How to Make It in Toronto. Super excited to be sitting down with my good friend here, Hervé Ajeneza, someone who I work with currently right now, but someone who I'm already learning a lot from as well. Do you know what I mean? And great experience for me to get to know you personally, but obviously also the fact that you are a mindfulness expert. You're also someone born in Africa like me, and we made our way here, so we've immigrated. And I feel that this conversation is going to be just really cool to starting to understand and see the world in a completely different way, or maybe to say it better in a more mindful way. So, ladies and gentlemen, Hervé. Thank you. So, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm interested in hearing your response to this one, but let's start the show as usual. How do you define success, sir?
Great question. Success to me is like fulfillment. It's really as basic as it gets, but it's deeper than most people think, right? It really doesn't matter almost what you do. This fulfillment, it really comes from the fact that you've looked inside of yourself and really found that no matter what you're trying to partake into, you're not trying to get validated by what the result you're going to get out of it. But actually, the start is the success of it. Yeah. You know, it's not the end when you get perhaps the cars, the company running, making $100 million. It could be that, but the fulfillment starts from the start. Yeah. It's not really based on time. And to me, you could be off the grid in a van. That's success. Because you're cooking your food, you're being active, you're happy. That's success. You could be running a company, making billions of dollars, but it's fun. Because the fulfillment starts from the start, right? It's not you trying to be validated by the things that you're partaking into, but then your passion actually is like translated into that. To me, that's priceless. Yeah,
because those are just things, right? You're just accumulating things along the way. That's why I like that kind of like definition of success, because as you're saying, success is the conscious decision to get started.
That's right. Yes.
So, that's awesome. So, I mean, right now you'd started, and you had introduced me to your podcast, obviously The Mystical Journey, which I highly recommend people check out. And it's deep, man. Like it's super deep. Like if you're someone who's knowledge based or interested in learning, it's very. Very, very well explained. Very, just informative. You know what I mean? So, why did you start the Mystical Journey podcast? What was the reason for starting that podcast?
So, I started the Mystical Journey podcast, which is, by the way, is found on all major, streaming services, right? Apple Podcast, Spotify, and etc. And really, I started because at heart, I have been really looking into the matters, like what is it this life about? What is this? Why are we here? Why am I here? What people go through? These existential questions, right? That I couldn't get from religious people, spiritual systems, books. I may have had pieces of here and there. And so at a certain point, I decided to take matters in my hands and really see how well I could explain the visible world and the invisible world. Because I found there was a problem, right? There's always got to be a problem that you feel like your entire life has to change in order to explain it to it. It's people call it a life mission, maybe a purpose. I don't really get attached to words, but it meant enough for me to change to be able to actually explain it. So I realized that when people on their journey, they have two ways. There's a traditional way, right? You go to a temple, you meditate for 40 years maybe, and you have a spiritual leader who tells you this is good. You read books, you chant. If you're religious, maybe that's a journey for you. And you do a lot of practice in which hopefully after 30, 40 years, you've reached what state people call enlightenment, nirvana, right? And it requires a lot of practice, but it requires also support. I wanted to ask myself, but what is it in us, right, that makes us depend on somebody else if we have the entirety of existence within us, right? And it's not to reject anything, but I was wondering if there was a way we can investigate in ourselves to actually find a direct experience with consciousness. And that's a very dangerous place to go to.
Let me just say, that's basically the way the way he started. That's the way he started talking to me.
Yes, exactly.
He walked up to me and you're like, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "I'm here to work." And he's like, "No, you. Like, what got you to make that decision and start along a path of success?" You know
That's
what I mean?
right.
Literally, just like,
that's how it started.
But I was like, this guy is clearly a serious guy. But like, obviously, I understand where he's coming from. Do you know what I mean? But like, you're totally right. So like, let's explain. Like, let's start with this. What is mindfulness? Why is it important?
So at the core of at the base of mindfulness, we just being aware of what's happening within you, and you really explore the inner world, right? And to see how it's related to the physical world, really. And then there's so many ways people go by meditation. There are many practices. So that's really the core.
Yeah.
And to me, it's everything, right? Because I understand a little bit the relationship between the world that's unseen and the physical world. So I like to say that what we call consciousness, or the inner world, is the space in which the physical world is born out of, right?
Yeah.
And it has all the potentiality. That's where true creativity can come, imagination, compassion. And the physical world is just an effect of that, right? Yeah. So that's basically how I would explain it.
How can, I mean, because obviously for me, and like watching and listening to your podcast, and I think based on the fact that I'm on my own journey, as you've mentioned, it would make you go looking for those types of answers, or at least understand the concept that you're explaining here. But what's a way that you think, or a way for people to kind of open their mind to this prospect? Like you're saying, all the answers are within you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I'm sure if you were to tell most people that, they would kind of think you're fugazi or like, talking up your ass. But what's a way of what's a way of helping people kind of conceptualize this? Or, this is a leading question for you into what we're going to talk about, but like, what helped you, I guess, kind of open your mind into being able to understand certainly, the dimension or concept of the physical world of these two worlds? I know that's a really deep question.
No, it's a great question. So if you really think about it, Carl, you and I, like, we have a name. We're physically, we are conditioned because I'm a man, you're a man. I'm tall, you're tall. But almost everything about us can be changed. So what I mean, you could change your name to Patrick, right? You can get into 100 pounds more or lose weight. You could bleach your skin, right? You could change to being a communist to a capitalist, right? You could be a conservative and change pretty much everything about you. But that's one aspect that can be changed, right? That is the physical world. And we have been conditioned, right? This is where it's really understood. Yes, we have been conditioned to think that's it. We are our thoughts, our emotions, and our feelings, and our bodies. That's what we think. That's it. And then, yes, the Matrix, right? People call it the Matrix. Some people call it a dream. The Hindus say it was a drama in which, a god had. It was almost like high. Some people say we're like under a trance. There's so many ways to explain it. Now, if you can change, you can go through all these changes. What is aware of that change? What is the nature of behind the fact that you can change?
Yeah.
So there's gotta be something that's aware that you can change. Me and you can change, right? So what is the nature of that? That's where consciousness comes in, right? Now, because it then opens your mind, right? Yeah. Now you start asking your questions, right? Another good example, look at this room, right? Room has a bunch of stuff, right? Colors and books and tables and everything. And then if you ask somebody, so what's in this room? Tell me about this room. And tell you everything in this room. But what is the space that this room is into? Right? Scientists call 99% is empty space. What is that empty space that these things are in? What is it? That is basically our consciousness. Yeah. That's who we are, truly. Right? It's not to reject the physical world, but to understand the relationship to it, right? Now, it's one way to start conceptualize that, right? Because I know when people hear that you have everything within you, it has become very overrated because people don't even understand what it means, because they think, oh yeah, you have all the answers in you. Really, it's much more than that. It's much different than that. Yeah. Not only you basically are the entirety or the fabric of existence itself, right?
Yeah.
And you experiencing yourself within this character that you call Carl, that I call Hervé. And then, one hand, you can't really say that you just that, but if you can reconcile the two, can you actually become a good human being? Like actually almost a superpower person, right? So that's the whole idea of mindfulness. And then I explain, right? Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I mean, like, honestly, I could ask you a million things right now, but we're gonna keep the podcast integrated to understand.
That's right. Of course.
I think we all sit down and have like a deep dive.
That's right. That's
further
definitely
into more. So, what events in your or major events in your life triggered you to get into mindfulness?
So I was born and raised in Rwanda, which is a tiny country in Central East Africa. Had a good upbringing. Went to high school just like a little kid, just like everybody. And then I remember like yesterday, 1994, April 7. It was like maybe like around 4 a.m. This is how specific it is. It was the beginning of a civil war that people call genocide. I was supposed to go to school the next day. And I was thinking about playing, everybody. I was 11 years old, right? But the first bullet triggered something, right? 3 months later, 1 million people had died. It was almost, you couldn't recognize this place. And so obviously I survived. Some of my members didn't. And it was a really traumatic event. I started asking myself, what could have triggered a whole population or a small group of people to kill each other, right? They had one religion, same language, same custom, cultures, and everything. It brought me to understand what mind control is, or conditioning, right? If this mind can be molded to a result, doesn't always have to be positive, right? It could be negative, right? And because I was born and raised as a Christian, I wanted to know. I would ask crazy questions, right? I'm like, I want to know if everybody was a Christian, and then this thing happened, where was God, right? Where was God? In this whole moment, right? Did he just take a vacation? What happened, right? And most of the answers, I'm pretty determined, so I'm not really easily satisfied with the answers. So I said, if they would say, well, some people would say, well, if we survived, we prayed, so we survived, right? I say, okay, so thanks to your prayer, you survived, right? I say, okay, what about those who didn't pray and they survived? I said, well, God did what he had to do. I said, what about those who prayed who didn't survive? Then, the questions keep increasing. Realize that really the reason why we're religious or we partake into these things is because we are fearful. We actually don't know, and we hope that maybe the next the afterlife it could be good, but we pray because we're ensure we need safety, right? Fast forward, I came to Canada with that idea in mind to keep investigating, ask questions, right? I would speak to priests, voodoo practitioners, anybody who in the spiritual world, ask them questions.
Did you do this for every kind of religion? Like,
almost everybody, yes. Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists. I read a bunch of books. I read pretty much anything I could put my hand on because I was trying to find that information would explain everything, right? Then eventually I realized that there's a time where you have to accept all responsibility and become the thing that you're trying to explain, right? So literally almost have different timelines in one, right? So I started understanding what some of the yogis and masters in the past had talked about, which is the purpose of all spiritual endeavors, which is enlightenment, right? So to transcend all these concepts and everything that actually blind our mind, so have a clear mind, right? This is why I started the podcast.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not not going too far, but that's basically it.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure we're getting you're blowing my mind. So yes, we keep going. Yeah.
So that's basically it. That's the all these events basically kept on pushing me into finding something that's unknown. It's basically a road in which I don't need instructions or leader or spiritual person who can tell me you're on the right track. I just need to continue almost in the dark. So it's like walking in the shadows. Like you don't know what you're going to find. If you're fearful, well, you won't go far.
Yeah.
You know, but you might as well go straight.
Yeah.
The more you go straight, you find there's actually a light. There's a light somewhere in this darkness, right? And then you find, and then that's when you actually deal with your trauma, and then you get a lot of explanations. And then fast forward to now, it has helped me basically not only deal with my trauma, but also have better relationships, understand what compassion is, really be like a true loving person, have real power, and many, many things that I can explain. So those are
religious?
No, I'm not religious.
Okay.
Yes, I'm really that person who I don't have any dogma that I follow.
Yeah.
Like I don't have instructions. I don't have a book that I follow. I don't have a God that I follow.
Do you think you found this out because of your research?
Yes.
And especially going through, and I don't want to go on anyone who's religious. I'm personally not either. And I was born Christian like you. And certainly in the same way you asked the question is the same way I'd relate it to, I guess, the Black experience in general, where I'm like, how are we both going for the same person here, but we are getting kind of screwed out of it. But you kind of learn to figure it out for yourself, and this is where again it's like you have to figure out and go through like your own light to get there. And I think you and I again is like it's another one where we can really deep dive into religion and everything else. But I guess in this, like, it definitely changed you as a person, figuring this information out.
Oh yes.
But obviously, and I would say is like it's not like it necessarily made you a negative person.
No.
It actually just kind of, if I can say it, opened you up to the world. Is there something that would you encourage people to potentially go down this journey, or is this something that people can learn through listening to your podcast and kind of waking themselves up or seeing this information from maybe another angle?
This is Hervé, the founder of the Mystical Journey podcast, and I'm happy to introduce you to our 2 new latest products. This will supercharge your spiritual journey and basically gives you that everything you need to continue your journey. So we have this seed, that is the product line, which is a tincture for everyday maintenance. That will basically give you that energy that you need. This is better than coffee, but there is no crash. And it helps you get that restful sleep, keep your mind very clear, and it have all the natural ingredient, handcrafted things like ashwagandha and cacao, and turkey tail mushroom, and a lot of that basically boost your system to keep your vitality. And this is what you need in your smoothie in the morning. This is C+, which is a powder, which is also great for your gut health, to give you that energy, to keep your system boosted, alive. And it has great ingredients like sea moss, which has a lot of minerals for the body to replenish your energy, and cacao and many other ingredients that helps you basically, have your mind clear and powerful and keep your journey alive. What's really special about my approach on mindfulness and the lectures. So I invite the listener to basically investigate with me. Say, I always start my introduction say, I wonder if we can look into this matter and see if it's possible to become totally free. And I'm referring to a true irreversible change, a revolution of the mind, in which we're not depending on any concept, ideas, beliefs, right? I wonder if we can even transcend cultures, Because why do I have to follow a culture that was created by me? As much as I can be proud by it, saying I'm from this place, while this culture is also confining me in the certain directions. Yes, right?
Kind of tunnel vision.
The tunnel vision. Why not open the entirety of the mind? But it's because we fear that we might find some things we're not ready for, right? So I really invite people to listen to my podcast, and when they do that, to investigate and maybe, for example, ask themselves while listening to this information, don't try to take sides and say I agree or disagree, because we're always torn apart between gain and loss and left and right, up and down, between religious or not religious. What I'm referring to is that ask yourself when you listen to this information, what is that knower behind this information that feels like there's something familiar about this? Can you just for a little while, for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, let go of every expectations, right, that you have, any prejudice or conclusion, to see what happens? Because I don't want you to actually tell you what you're going to find. I want you just to walk with me and tell me what you find. But I'm just asking you just to let go everything first and listen. And people would actually find that there is a direct experience with consciousness that will forever transform themselves, right? People sometimes talk to me, and for fun, I don't even mention spirituality, and they say, "Oh my God, what is it? There's something that's changing, right?" So that's basically it.
Do you think if certainly someone who's experienced trauma, this would be a good path for them to maybe try and face it or get to kind of deal with it? I guess in the most direct, honest kind of way. Because of course, yes, like in some cases, I'm just giving examples, and let's say this is a fact, but like in some cases, people can turn to either religion or something else in a case like that, which may not necessarily fully fulfill them, right? Do you think this was a good way for, at least for you, in kind of seeing that and getting a better understanding of what happened and obviously dealing with it and moving forward?
Definitely. Because there's a deeper way to explain what trauma is. I really recommend people listening to that, because I'm not the only one talking about this stuff, but very few teachers actually or lecturers can actually go beyond all their spiritual systems that that exist, right? A true teacher actually has, if you listen, I don't really have like 12 steps to be free. I don't tell you, core 3 things you need to do. I just speak to your consciousness and to your mind so you can actually figure it yourself. So when it comes to trauma, for example, on a basic level, it's usually a very deep experience that marks your life, right? And as much as they say, for example, a trauma, somebody hurts this hand, that's pain. The story I have about this experience is suffering, because every day I say, oh my God, my hand was hurt, my life is over, I can't do this anymore. So you pouring your entire emotion and feelings about this event, as much as pain was real, now you have suffering. So now you create an identity about this suffering. You go everywhere. Did you know about what happened by my hand? Did I tell you about my hand? So it's the whole thing. Now, all of a sudden, this hand may not actually even heal. It's becoming your entirety of existence, right? And so facing it, saying, you know what, I accept that this has happened. It was painful. Also, I'm responsible for having created this story about this whole hand being hurt, right? It's a bigger proportion. When all emotions are all-time high, it's not everybody who's ready to listen to that, because they might say, well, I'm the victim. I'm the one who's hurt. You don't know anything about that, right? So sometimes you get backlash because it's that identity you're threatening to end.
Because it becomes a part of your
exactly.
That is,
Oh yes, they'll fight you to do, and I was there. Yes. Yeah. And I've met people that really liked to themselves, that also helped me realize how I was trying to fight to keep this identity of hurt, of a victim, right? You know,
you
don't
see
know
that a lot in our culture.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Everyone's a victim.
Oh
days.
yeah, everybody's. It's just trauma.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of avoidance. You know, let me avoid to deal with something, but they just you call it's trauma, right?
Yeah.
This person hurt me, right? And you keep revisiting the story. You're not ready to really face it, and you know what it does? It feeds that story to be bigger, and eventually it's gonna become actually make you pay for it, because then you start typing into sickness. Some people get sick, because this pain is mentally, physically. Why am I drained today? Well, for 10 years you've been saying that someone hurt you, right? And you're feeding this story ever. You can't live like with your life with full vitality, all your senses, right? Because it's identification with that. Imagine multiply by 10, right? It's really not a good way to live.
It's totally true. I think Bruce Lee said, "Be careful what you say about yourself, because your mind doesn't know whether you're being honest or not."
That's it.
So you should always make sure you talk positively about yourself. Even like if you're you do something dumb, like I'm an idiot, and then I always correct something. No, that was like stupid, or this happened, but I'm not this. And being very cautious about how you talk about yourself, and because you're right, your body, it's like your brain is listening to you. Like it's not just your thoughts, or your body is listening. In general, it's not just like your brain. So you have to be very careful about how you speak about yourself, how you speak in general.
Correct.
And I think certainly around the subject of success, or if you're going to accomplish something, I think that's where the understanding of manifestation comes up, because it's like if you put it out there, you think about it all the time, you tend to kind of get there and meet it. So that kind of talks about that concept, right?
Oh, definitely. And then when it comes to manifestation, we can go into that as well. But you'll notice that being mindfulness will help you actually manifest. But it shouldn't be the reason why you're getting to mindfulness. You gotta be careful about that, because this is not a thing that you use to get something. This is not a stepping stone. It has to be the entirety of you or nothing. That's where some people, let me just avoid, let me just get into, I feel like I can't deal with my anxiety. Let me use this to get, to avoid, or try to hide something just by using something. How about just simply investigate and see what you find? Because it's not always going to be pretty, right? Yeah. And manifesting is simply knowing that you can be in the now, knowing that everything has already been accomplished the moment you declare it, right? And not always trying to project yourself into the future, right? So that's basically it.
What steps do you think that we can, or not me, I guess anyone can, or especially a listener, if you wanted to take a step towards becoming more mindful, where's a good place for you to start? Like for you, I think you started obviously from religion, right? Going about it that way. Yeah. But what's a good way to get people into it? Because I know, again, it's like if you're looking for the answer, you will find it in regards to mindfulness specifically. But some people can say, I think, again, it's like, that's hogwash or whatever. Yeah. What's a great way to kind of get to start? And it sounds terrible, but where you'll see a benefit, but you're not supposed to be doing it for obviously that benefit. Right. What's a great way to start?
Resources wise?
Yeah.
I would say if there is one person or that I find very profound, yet so very simplistic in explaining mindfulness, is Eckhart Tolle. He's and he has written a few books. One of the books is The Power of Now, in which really he breaks down what he calls the eternal now. I also talk about it, in which once you start investigating and you go through this heavy layer of conditioning that has blurred your mind, now you open the door to the eternal now, the presence, in which you're not worried about, you're not revisiting memories of the past, you're not projecting yourself in the future. You're just here now. What else could I be? There's no other place I should be besides here, and there's no one who's ever in the world has ever done anything in the future. You have to wait for tomorrow to do it in the now. So we can't avoid that. So it's a good think about it. You can plan for tomorrow, but you can't do tomorrow right now, right? So I think it's a good way to start. And then my podcast, the Mystical Journey podcast, as a great way to look at different different approaches about pretty much everything, even races, happiness, enlightenment. I talk about things like reincarnation and karma. There is actually no belief that escapes me, because sometimes people think, well, I'll keep these beliefs, right? Because those are comfortable with me, but I'm gonna get rid of this. And I'm like, no, like everything has to go so you can see clearly. Think about it. So you have 20 kilos of weight here. Those are called belief through conditioning, religion, spiritual system, culture, nationalism, and everything. All that you accumulated. I'm saying, just get rid of, just for a moment, and see. Oh, let me just take off 10 kilos only. No, take off 20 kilos and see all of it. See how it feels, because the reason you again, your identity is being threatened, right? You're holding onto it. Yes, but I'm a conservative. I cannot be anything besides conservative. But I believe in that. My mom told me this was true. I cannot let this go. Right?
Exactly. Okay, so what's your specific approach to mindfulness, and how can people benefit from themselves?
So in terms of approach, it's really very simplistic. I say, I wonder if you can really be honest with yourself and realize the dangers of our conditioning, right? And conditioning, as it's great to create societies. We create these societies because somehow we have to be conditioned into create a result, right? You have to drive in one direction. You have to walk on this side, not on this side, right? You have to pay your taxes, right? It's being conformed to do certain things in a very repetitive way, which makes us almost very mechanical. I understand this is for society, but if you're truly interested in what I call transcending everything, transcending these metrics, transcending this dream, say, can you, without someone giving you a bunch of instructions, look into your own conditioning and realize it yourself? Because I trust that you're actually mature enough to start looking it for yourself. Because if I show it to you, everything, it's not going to be the same. Can you find it for yourself? Because once you find it yourself, no one can ever control you in this life. Because you did it yourself. Exactly. You literally became the thing that you were looking for, right? Can you, just a little bit of instructions maybe, but can you find and look at that conditioning, absolutely everything. And meditation is a great way to really explore your inner world, right? Just sit down on a chair, hopefully not too much noise. Turn off your cell phone for maybe 15, 20 minutes and really investigate, feel your entire body as the presence of your entire body, and look at those thoughts that rise and fall, right? Oh, tomorrow I have a meeting. Of course he's going to tell you tomorrow is going to have a meeting, right? Because he's trying to distract you. But you'll see that the more thoughts you don't pay attention to, you let them be, you accept what it is, and it's always connection to an emotion, right? Oh, I wonder what my mom think. What if it's good? It's a good thought. It feels good in your body, but let it be, because you're much more than your thoughts and your body and your emotions, right? And then eventually you're gonna stop drifting away and start seeing a new world that's behind it, and that's the world that will basically kind of animate and help you deal with a lot of stuff you've been holding on. And just the benefits of that is that you just live life with full vitality, with all your senses. You see compassion. You may not always want to watch TV because it's like you understand how dangerous it can be as well. And honestly, I just feel like you become a better human being.
It's an awakening.
Yeah, it's an awakening. It's a true awakening. And you can be in the city. You don't have to go in the Himalaya, in India to and wear a robe and start. No, you can just do it here, right now. It doesn't have to be, So I think that, to me, realize the dangers of your conditioning and doing some meditation daily, it's already enough. If you want to add some other stuff, you can read some books, understand a little bit, maybe some mysticism, ancient Egypt, Hindus. Just get a little bit of knowledge, but don't get caught up in it. Because all the knowledge is already. It's not. No.
It's an answer.
Yeah, it's the answer. Because you are the answer.
You are the answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's only one book you need to read. It's already inside you.
Yeah.
So everything is like, it's like a bonus, right? Okay, you want to read a book about, I don't know, astrology? Because it's fun. You do it, right? But in the end, the fabric in which even astrology was created from, there's no way running over it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people think it's too much responsibility. Are you telling me I'm the existing itself? No, there's no way, right?
Yeah.
That's much power. It's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It's like, what do you mean? You see, I'm that vast? Yeah. You're much more than that.
You're even more than what you think.
You're more than exactly.
Yeah, no,
it is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, my reaction is a good one. It's constantly making me sit there and be like, wow, fuck.
Yes.
It keeps going, and it's more phenomenal.
Yes.
And obviously we're gonna keep deep diving, but just for today's episode, we'll start to wrap it up. But like, what is your goal for the mystical journey? What are listeners going to get out of it? I mean, obviously, if you're not listening to what this guy's saying right now, what would you say is going to be the benefit? Because I mean, certainly for me, I can say, some of the things you've already taught me in regards to how to react to things. I'm already putting. I think I told you about this. Walking the dog, and sometimes people do things that can be off-putting.
Yes.
And that's their thing for them to do. But if I react to it, I'm the one who's reacting, not what they did, right?
Correct.
And that's something I learned from you, and this is why I highly encourage people to check out the podcast. But yeah, so what would you say if you're a listener who wants to check out the podcast, and even for you as a business, as the person who started this podcast? What's your goal for it, and what do you hope listeners to take from it? Aside from learning all this phenomenal knowledge and changing their perspective.
Honestly, I see myself basically transforming societies and making people becoming almost like independent thinkers, right? Yeah. In which they don't actually, they don't even have to follow me in terms of the way I think about this stuff or talk about this stuff. But I truly believe that if you are the entirety of consciousness, I am the same thing. We can do our things, but once we transcend that, you have a society of just good human beings. I truly believe that we haven't a good chunk of society has never actually experienced compassion. Yeah. Do you know that if you and I didn't see a separation, right, between any human beings, but also between cats and dogs and trees and water and everything, there's no way we could be destroying this earth. Yeah. Because we would say we're the same thing, we're the same fabric, right? In different form, right? This is as me as I am, right? You're the same. Yeah. It's just a different form.
Yes.
We call it water. It was the glass of water. There's no way we could be destroying this earth. So we can actually improve society. That instead of, being caught up in the external world, we can build society from an inner world in which we can transcend all difference, our inner conflict and separation. So what it does is simply going to create really good human beings that can be lovable, and I think we can actually transform society. And then, of course, it includes trauma, dealing with stress, anxiety, happiness, joy, anything you can think of, because you're tapping in something that has all the potentiality, right? That's what you get for listening to stuff like that.
Powerful. Yeah, powerful stuff. I mean, for me, this is why I obviously love working with you. Love to have you on the podcast and share that information.
Definitely.
Because my goals are definitely aligned, and I think certainly in this world and at this time, as you see things really fall apart because we're more focused on consumerization than each other.
Correct.
I think it's a great time for you to have your podcast and for people to listen to it. So please check out this podcast and awaken yourself. Last thing I would say for you is, like, if you had any advice for someone who has experienced certainly a big trauma, and is looking to either accomplish something or because for you're an entrepreneur as well. You're not just a mindfulness expert. You've turned that into a business.
Right.
What's a good way for them to kind of not only overcome that, but then also accomplish something along the way? Would you say? Because speaking from your journey.
Right.
I know that's kind of a complicated.
Yes.
It's very loaded, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would say it's always good to take a little bit of time to explore the idea of what you're trying to accomplish. Make sure it's something that you've looked and then you found there was a problem, and almost anybody you talked to couldn't almost understand it. It's just bigger, maybe never been explored. And you've looked inside yourself and said, this is the thing that I'm going to pour myself into, not necessarily attached to it, and just become somebody new. And while I do that, I basically keep on being mindful of the things that I've done and take responsibility. Even when I was a victim, I'm still responsible. Yeah. I know that one hurts, right?
Yeah.
And to really, you want to do something that's going to transform yourself, but also transform society.
Yeah.
And that's where, because you're building from consciousness, you're going to create something good, not just from money. Money is great. Money is energy, yes, right? And it's material, and then it's needed. But you will find yourself, creating something that's going to profit from or to a lot of people, right? Not just profit and just thinking about taking, right? So that's what I would do. So it's continue in exploration. Don't need to depend on anybody. You can listen to a lot of people, but in the end, you're still the answer basically you're looking for. Yes.
Awesome, man. I mean, again, is definitely gonna have you on. Definitely have all your information on the website. I think there's a lot of things that we need to cover for the next time. I think we were talking about discussing, mindfulness and happiness. Certainly mindfulness and how it can help solve problems going forward. And I think probably the biggest one is talking, or at least for us personally, is you talking about mindfulness and racism. So people should definitely tune in. But if you're interested in this subject and you're looking for more information in regards to mindfulness, check out The Mystical Journey. It's worth it. I enjoy it. I love it. So I think you will too. So we're going to wrap it up for today. One last question for you. And this one's going to be, I'm interested in this answer from you for sure. If you had a theme song for your life, Mr. Mindful, what would that be?
Mr. Mindful? No. Let me see. Actually, I know one. I actually like this song. It's called Written in the Stars. By, I think Tiny Tempa. Is that?
Yeah.
I like that.
That's a dope track.
It's really, it's like, it's powerful. It's like, tells you like,
it's like foreshadowing.
Yeah, literally. So it's good. And I'm a big fan of hip hop and just music. So that would definitely be my
track.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Of course, thank you so much. Looking forward to more chats. I highly advise people to obviously again check out the podcast and learn more. But for today, thank you for your time. And we'll have you on again very, very soon, because I think this conversation is extremely important and helpful to anyone that wants to listen, certainly in our society at this moment. So thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome. Nice to be here.
Thank you, Toronto.